Hi, everyone. My name is Quinn Whiffen with Vertical Measures, and I'm here hosting VM's monthly webinar series. Today's webinar is titled Pitfalls to Avoid in a Post-Penguin and Panda World, and will be presented by our very own Vice President of Client Services at Vertical Measures, Mike Huber. Possessing over 20 years experience in marketing and advertising, Mike started out in newspaper advertising and has worked in online marketing for the past 15 years. Mike has been involved with the development of organic SEO tactics and extensive PPC programs that have increased revenue and traffic significantly for his clients. Before we get started and I hand over the presentation to Mike, please allow me to just take care of a few notes. Today's webinar will be available for replay by tomorrow afternoon, barring any technical difficulties. We'll also be happy to answer any of your questions, so please make sure to ask them in the chat or the question applet on your screen, or you can even tweet us using the hashtag VMWebinar. Any questions we don't get to, we'll be sure to try and answer via email. If you're having any technical difficulties, please just try to reconnect. So with all of that complete, I'll go ahead and hand it off to our very own Mike Huber.
I'll just go over this slide real quickly here. Maybe you feel like you're playing the old whack-a-mole game with Google. It seems as webmasters, every time we get something cleaned up and we make advances with our traffic, that Google changes the algorithm for what they deem acceptable in the terms of service. So then we have to go back and scramble to accommodate the new changes. What worked a couple of years ago, or even as late as just a couple of months ago, oftentimes is no longer valid. And this year, more than ever, the changes that have been made are month to month. In fact, this last week, or actually this current week, Google made the 20th update to the Panda algorithm. So you may be one of those webmasters that received the dreaded Google Webmaster Tool Unnatural Links report. And if that looks familiar, or maybe your analytics data looks something like this. And yikes is it. We've talked to many webmasters that have had traffic drops similar to this one. And the big question that they ask is, how do we recover, and is that even possible? So our suggestion is don't panic. And whether you've been a recipient of the Webmaster Tools email, or if you noticed a sudden drop or an over time drop in traffic, there are ways that you can recover. So when this kind of thing happens, we all really have a tendency to want to react and do everything at once. And so we make changes right away. And you might target things like on-site issues, or you may target backlink portfolios. And our suggestion is that you don't go this route. You'll get there eventually, but what we recommend is a more organized and planned approach that will save you time, trouble, and effort. It'll get you where you're going, but you'll be more organized and more effective along the way. That's what I want to talk about, and that's what our journey to traffic recovery is all about. So essentially what you want to do is analyze the situation, create a strategy document based on that analysis, and then break that down into practical, tactical steps, make those in a priority order, document everything you do, then go to the next tactical step and all the way through your entire list, and at the end you want to rinse and repeat. So as you start to do the analysis, what do you want to consider? One of the things you might want to look at is the cause or is the correlation that's causing the traffic drop. So the definition of cause is that if A happens, it causes B. And a correlation is a concept that measures the relationship between two things. So a positive correlation means that when one thing goes up, the other thing goes up, and a negative correlation could be when one thing goes up, something else goes down. And the reason that this is important, I'll give you an example. So correlation, the best example that I can think of is a seasonal traffic website. So let's say, for example, that you're a hotel company, and during the peak season, you'll have a lot of traffic to your site, and then during the shoulder and off season, your traffic will drop. And unless you were to take a step back and analyze that traffic, you may have thought it was one of the Google updates that caused the traffic drop, where you have a correlation there, but you don't have cause. However, if you notice that half of your backlinks disappeared in one of the Google updates, that would be cause, and you'd know where to start the recovery process. And also, if your traffic dropped on April 24th of this year, you can be pretty certain that you were hit by the Penguin update. So let's look at the updates and see if there's something that resonates with your traffic drop. So on the left-hand side here, we have Panda, and that update is essentially focused on low-quality sites. And one of the things that we talk about here is the blog apocalypse. There were a lot of thin content and low-quality sites that actually just disappeared and were de-indexed. With Panda, you may have poor or thin content, and you could have either a page or site-wide penalty. Panda also targeted content farms, and it's targeting sites that have high bounce rates. Penguin, on the other hand, is an over-optimization update. It targets abnormal linking, over-optimized anchor text, and keyword stuffing. And as I mentioned earlier, there was another recent update, and that actually focuses on EMD, which is exact match domains. So these two updates have had a great impact on a lot of website traffic and rankings. And as you do analysis of your traffic drop, make sure that you consider both of these updates. So, knowing what caused your traffic drop in the first place is really important. And there are three areas where you can look for the cause of your traffic drop. And they're on-site, off-site, and actually with your competition. So here are some of the things that you should be looking for. When you do your on-site analysis, make sure that you can isolate the drop in traffic. We've had clients that have actually had really, really high single pages that have driven most of their traffic, and that one particular page is dropped, which is in essence pulling all of their traffic down. You also might want to look at your directories within your site, and you also want to look at site-wide problems that you might have. And what could be causing this is you may have thin content, you may have over-optimized content on your site, and you may have over-optimized internal linking. And as I mentioned earlier, there were a lot of techniques that used to work. 2 or 3 years ago, if you had a lot of internal links, link grids, all kinds of anchor text pointing to internal pages, that actually helped you, and now it doesn't. So be careful of that. In terms of offsite, you want to look for your backlink quantity, your backlink quality, and you also want to look at optimization of your anchor text. We found in a lot of cases people are using head terms too frequently in their backlinks, and that's causing penalties and issues with their traffic. And don't forget to look at the competition, because you always want to be able to compare and contrast what's happening not only with your website but with your main competitors. So let's look at some examples on the next slide. So this is actually a repeat of the slide that we had earlier in the presentation. This is truly evidence of a Penguin hit. So the arrow is pointing to the exact date that the Penguin update rolled out, and you can see that precipitous drop in traffic. So what you want to do as you start your analysis is to run reports and look at your traffic and see if any of the traffic drops that you have correlate to any of the Panda or Penguin updates. If your updates correlate, or if your traffic does correlate to these updates, then you can be pretty certain that you have a problem that is indexed against one of these. So in terms of a Penguin over optimization issue, when we did analysis on this particular site, we found that 43% of their anchor text is in one word or one phrase, Arizona tourism. This site is definitely over-optimized for anchor text. So, and the confirmation of this is really proven on the slide that preceded this one, because it shows the traffic drop on the date that Penguin rolled out. So how do you find this information, and how do you put it together? We use some analysis tools, Google Analytics for one. In most cases, people that we run into have analytics on their site. Google Webmaster Tools has been improving those tools over time. We use OpenSite Explorer. We also use SEMrush, which will give you a good indication of your current rankings as well as previous rankings. And we like this tool because it also gives us an idea of the competitors that are in your space, and you can do analysis on those sites as well. And then the pretty chart that I showed you, the pie chart, is actually done through Link Detective, where we grab an Open Site Explorer CSV file, and Link Detective actually coordinates that and turns that into a nice graph. So also when you're looking at this, make sure that you're reviewing the competition. Make sure that you're analyzing whether your competitors are up or down. You can compare and contrast, and both look at on-page and off-page. And remember, we don't operate in a vacuum. Our traffic drops may have nothing to do with any of the updates, and they may have everything to do with a competitor who's cranking out great content and building really strong backlinks. So it's really important to look at your competition when you're isolating your own issues. And make sure you compare and contrast the quality of your content against the top competitors, and then also make sure you compare your backlink portfolio as well to those top competitors. The good news is the Internet's really transparent, so you can do this analysis on word count, number of pages, quality, and quantity of backlinks just by using some of the tools that I just mentioned. A follow the leader approach might actually be a good strategy that you could use to pull your traffic out of decline. And then the next slide can help you isolate changes from significant updates so you can isolate and associate with those traffic drops. So cost for traffic drops, these are some of the things you want to look at on your site. Do you have limited original content? Do you have low visit times, either on particular pages or on your site? Do you have a high percentage of duplicate content? We find this especially true with affiliate sites. You may have high bounce rates on a particular page or site-wide. Ask yourself, do you have boilerplate or concatenated content? If you do, that could be causing the problem. Are you using keyword phrases? Are you stuffing it? Does it look unnatural when you read the page? And do you have over-optimized internal linking? In terms of off-site, your backlink portfolio, does it have low quality and a low number of backlinks? And the site-wide backlinks are really a culprit in a lot of traffic declines because they look like ads that are pointing to your site. Do you have links from spammy sites? Do you have over-optimized anchor text, as in the example that I showed earlier? Do you have evidence of paid links? And do you have links that are on sites with English as a second language? So once you analyze, you want to create that strategy document. And one of the pitfalls is, as you do the analysis, you want to try to do everything at once. And the strategy document will help you organize and isolate what the issues are, as well as give you a defined plan to walk through. For example, you may discover that you're over-optimized with anchor text in your backlink portfolio. If that's the case, you can identify the links that will have the most impact if they are removed. And this is really important because you want to try to do the things that give you the most leverage up front. Sorry, here. So within your strategy document, make sure that you have a definition of what the problem is and you have clarification. Make sure that you isolate the pages with the biggest traffic drops. Compare and contrast those pages to pages that remain strong. Do testing with updated pages, emulating your strong pages, and even emulating your competitors' strong pages, and create a working grid that helps you manage the changes. So the next step is to actually prioritize those tactical steps. So once you decide on your strategy, you want to make a practical and tactical approach to resolving the issues. And we recommend finding the issues, again, that give you the most leverage with the minimal use of resources. And you can use the following grid or your own variation to help you isolate the issues and then to walk through the steps that you need to make things better. So this is an example of a process grid where you identify the pages, the actual landing page where the problem exists. You try to determine what kind of page it is, how many words are on it, the quality, is it duplicated, and what the traffic impact has been. So once you do that, you can actually add columns to the grid on what you're going to do to improve those. So you might want to include an update, the date that was updated, the new word count, whether you added photos or video, put any particular notes about that particular page, and then start to watch and analyze any traffic updates. And the reason this is important is that you want to make sure that you cover everything, and if you have a logical sequential flow to the workflow and you document, you'll be able to make sure that you don't miss anything. So make sure that you do those changes in priority order, and the reason that this is important is you want to leverage the least amount of resources to the most gain. And one example of that actually is associated with what I just showed you with Arizona tourism. And again, I'll show you this slide of the links that are over-optimized. This is one look at it in the graph form, but if you look at it also in a spreadsheet form, you'll realize that this website has multiple links per website pointing to it. So there's a lot of link grids. There's sidebar links, there's footer links, there's all kinds of links that used to work and were actually really good SEO practices that don't work any longer. So if you're doing this in priority order, this will give you really good leverage just by contacting a few webmasters to remove these kinds of links from your site and really reduce that over-optimization issue. Another way to look at it visually is like this. This is a footer link as pointing to that website, and this is a real problem. This webmaster has been participating in link grids, and for the days when that actually used to work. So that's why webmasters also feel like they're playing the whack-a-mole game with Google, because this was a really good SEO technique, but no, it's no longer valid. So the key in this example is leveraging activities will give you the biggest impact and give you the biggest gain overall. You might also want to create a link printing document if you do have backlink issues, and you want to do that actually for a couple of different reasons. You want to be able to track what's happening in the contacts that you make with particular webmasters, and you also want to document everything, because at some point, if all of the things that you're doing to bring your traffic back don't work, you may want to consider filing a reconsideration request. So if you do have problems with your links, I included this slide. These are kind of the do's and don'ts of link building, and this is probably the most current look at it. Don't focus on quantity of links, focus on quality. Make sure that you have great content. It will actually get you links. Vary the content within the anchor text, and vary the content with text, images, and video. Write guest blog posts on relevant sites. One of the other things that you can do is reclaim links to pages that you've moved on your site. Become an authority, and people will link to you. You might also do the follow the leader approach. Find out what links your competition has and see if you might be able to get links on those sites. You want to make sure that you target do follows, and you want to strive for relevancy where your links are. In addition, things that you don't want to do is you don't want to use the same anchor text for over-optimization purposes as in the example that we showed just a little bit earlier. Don't link to low-quality sites. You want to don't focus on low-quality or directory sites. Don't use sidebar and footer links. The example that we just showed is one of the reasons that site's traffic has dropped dramatically. Stay away from low-quality content. Don't buy cheap link packages. Get quality links, and they won't be easy to get. Don't expect that. And don't build links to resources pages or do link exchanges. And don't pay for site-wide links. And as you do this, make sure that you're documenting. This is a very important step because, as I mentioned before, you want to make sure that you're executing your tactical plan that you're engaged in high gaining activities. You want to also make sure that you've gone through your list and implemented all of the changes, and you want to make sure that that happens now, and that's a great way to document. So from there, you want to make sure that you go through all the tactical steps in priority order and document as you go through. And then finally, you want to make sure that you analyze again and repeat, because we're not in a static business. Again, it seems like every time we get something fixed, we end up having a new update and then having to go back through and update for the new Google algorithms. So that's it for my presentation today, and I'm going to turn this back over to Quinn and see if we have some questions that we might answer from the participants.
Thanks, Mike. I know you eat, breathe, and drink link building and SEO, so thanks for sharing all your expertise with us. We're going to take a few questions. I do have one from Barbara, and she asked, what constitutes a high bounce rate?
You know, actually that's a really good question, because it really depends on your category and your business. And there may be a case where a high bounce rate might be 20%, and in another instance a high bounce rate it may be around 50 or 60%. So I think what you want to do if you're looking at bounce rates is you want to try to look at more than one page on your site and get some idea of overall bounce rates on your website. If you have a really high bounce rate, let's say it's over 50%, and that's involved in every single page on your site, you may have issues. One of the things that you can do too is that if you have pages that have really low bounce rates, compare those to ones that have really high bounce rates, and you might be able to figure out what the difference is and what the variables are. Because we found that if you have really thin content on a page, those typically have really high bounce rates because there's really nothing there to engage the user. If you have more in-depth content, there's more meat there, and that gives the user more opportunity to find out the information that they need. And in some cases, you really don't have much control over that because they found a search result on the internet, and within that search result, they landed on that page, and that page may not provide value to them. So one of the other things that you can do in that particular case is just to make sure that your title tags and your H1 tags and the other meta tags that you have on your website match the content that's on the site or on the page.
Thanks, Mike. I know bounce rates are super relative, so those are some good things to look at when you're analyzing it. I have another question from Angela, and she asks, how can you get bad sites that link to you to remove their link?
That's a really good question, too, and that's something that we actually do every day. And the grid that I showed you a little bit earlier is actually one of the things that we use to monitor our progress through contacting webmasters. So if you look at it as a process, I think the first thing you do is you analyze your backlink portfolio, determine which websites you think are causing a problem, and then you want to contact the webmasters at each one of those websites and request that the link pointing to you be taken down. And documentation on this is really critical because you want to be able to show Google, if you have to do a reconsideration request, that you've actually done your due diligence, you've asked webmasters to remove links, and you've done it in a way that's in an organized fashion that proves that you actually did the work. So the key to it is just to be tenacious. Often webmasters won't reply to you on the first or even the second email request that you make, but just keep after it. And what we try to do is make at least 3 attempts. We log those 3 attempts in case that we need to use that information for a resubmission request.
Great. We have another question, an interesting one from Susie. She asks, do you have any advice on recovering from when a competitor has carried out a toxic link profile of anchor text against your site?
You know what? Actually, if you look at Webmaster Tools, there's a link there where you can report that website. And I would think that's really the only recourse that you have. And this is really kind of a topical issue now. There have been a lot of blog posts written about it, and there's been a lot of people responding to those blog posts because they feel like that may be is something that has happened to them. So what I would do in that particular case is to actually gather documentation of the websites that you think have been pointed to you as an attack, and then submit that information through the link in Google Webmaster Tools. And as I recall, it's on the top, it's actually one of the first links on that page. It's on the top left-hand side. So you can actually report a website that you think is targeting you with those spammy links.
Okay. And, you know, to sum it all up, what do you think people can expect in the upcoming months, since both Panda and Penguin are rolling updates? They're not just solid one-time things. What should we look for in the coming months?
I think that if you've noticed a significant traffic drop, that you probably won't see anything else that's significant on top of that. From what I've read and what I know, things that are happening now are tweaks to the algorithm, and they involve a really small percentage of websites that might be affected. But I just think that as you move forward, just make sure that you're following the Google Terms of Service and realize that the whole impact is based on them wanting to have better content on the Internet. So with the Panda update, a lot of the content farms disappeared, a lot of the blog networks disappeared because it just wasn't very good content. So if you don't have good content on your site, it's thin, it's duplicate. Maybe you're an affiliate site and you're using concatenated copy that they provided from a database. Now's the time to actually look at your site and kind of roll back a little bit of the content and make sure that it's valid, make sure it's in-depth, and make sure that it provides value to the users and the readers.
Great advice and things to think about. I think that's all the time we have today for questions, but I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And please mark your calendar. We're going to have another webinar on Thursday, November 8th, and we're going to have a special guest host, Alan Bleiweiss, and he'll be speaking on the topic, Stop Playing the Google Yo-Yo Game and Win with Real SEO. We already have the registration open. It should be a really interesting topic, and Alan's always a fun speaker to listen to. Again, I'm Quinn with Vertical Measures. Thanks for dealing with our technical difficulties today and still staying with us. And thanks again to Mike for presenting all this great advice. Everyone, hope you have a great day. Bye.